If ever you wonder, who am I, and where am I going? Think of the fiction writer Maxwell Conroe. In his story bundle entitled Mind Twisters, he retells how, one night, he no longer knew the answer to those key existential questions, who am I, and where am I going? Being in a very confused state, the writer made up no less than 4 very different versions of what happened to him during what was in effect one and the same moonless night. Let me read for you the 4 remarkable recollections of his endurances that memorable night. Version 1. Nocturnal Adventures. A heartwarming welcome awaited me. Ample time was spent filling each other in about what had happened in the gap since we last met. Being exceptionally generous people, my friends cooked a great meal, and we enjoyed some fine red wine. We were all merrily chatting away about what had kept us busy over the past few years. At some point, I realized the night had long fallen. The wine unwittingly kept flowing into my glass and was knocking me off my feet. I suddenly deeply feared that I was about to keel over. In short, it was a good time to undertake my foot journey back to where I had started my journey, earlier in the afternoon, the sea resort of Agua Amarga. My nightly journey was bound to be a marvelous experience. The sky was clear, and I gazed at 1,000,000 stars in constellations beyond imagination. But something strange happened that night. It was a moonless night. With the moon gone, I could not see much of the ground around me. My journey was through a labyrinth of darkness, with merely some faint guidance from stars shimmering in the Milky Way above. Starlight gives only a fickle of light compared to what the moon can reflect from the sun at night. But the moon was gone. I must also admit that I was not capable of walking straight, and this had nothing to do with the lack of light. The alcohol level in my system was disorienting me and made me stumble forward. Each step was involuntarily followed by a couple more. My muscle control was severely affected by my intoxicated state. What's more, after each couple of forward charges, I would need a halt to recover my bearings. And I kept hearing, or imagining, giggling noises, as if sirens were both following and trying to lure me up the rock formations that flanked the dirt track, winding back to Agua Amarga. It had been years since I had last taken this route through the Cañada de Mendez, but I was not afraid of losing my way. From time to time, I started singing, especially during the stretches with rock faces closing in on the track. This singing technique was kind of an echolocating. In the pitch darkness, one can still hear when one is about to crash, on foot, into the rock wall next to the path. So the singing saved me from walking straight into the rock formation flanking the dirt track. This was not my major problem. Not until sunrise would I re-emerge from the mountains, while a sober person can walk the route in about an hour or 2. The strange thing is that my mind keeps making up different stories about what happened to me that memorable night. Let me share with you, in the following 3 mind twisters, some of the most plausible recollections of events. Version 2. A stalking. I stopped moving and tried to hold my breath so I could hear well any sound in my surroundings. At first, it seemed dead quiet. But then, I heard some sand and gravel shuffling again. I estimated the distance to the source of the sound being maybe no more than 25 feet away. All of a sudden, someone flashed a lantern. This was a bit further down the path, at maybe 90 feet from my position. The lantern swung from left to right and then veered off track up a gentle slope. What was I to do? Should I follow the person carrying the lantern? Was this real, or was it just an illusion? Could this be some sort of alcoholic delirium, perhaps? My instincts told me to stay put, but when the person carrying the lantern uphill stopped moving, the lantern swayed gently, rocking back and forth in a patient way. It was as if the light source was telling me, "Don't fear. Trust me. You'll be safe. Just follow me." I made 2, maybe 3 steps toward the direction of the lantern. Then I stopped. Nothing changed at the lantern's side. It just kept swinging. I took a couple more steps. Then I stumbled. Damn it! I should not have drunk so much wine. In fact, I was losing my sense of direction altogether. I was lying in the sand, face down, and was struggling to turn myself onto my back. But my sense of orientation was so confused, I hardly knew which way to turn. All I heard was the noise of the gravel and sand that I was now shifting with my boots, hands, and body. One thing was clear. I was vulnerable. Helplessly vulnerable. All the way out here in this remote, pitch-dark gorge named Cañada de Mendez. I was not carrying anything of value, but my life was dear to me. I could be killed by a weirdo out here. And what happened to the damned lantern? I turned around and round and round. Whatever direction I peeked into, no lantern was to be seen. I sat on my butt in the gravel bed and once again tried to quietly listen whether I heard other sounds than just my own breathing. Did I hear anything strange? All of a sudden, I definitely heard something running toward me. But it was not the sound of human footsteps. This was something else. Then it hit me. I toppled over. On top of me was a heavy creature, licking my face with a wet, sticky tongue. It was panting and kept licking me all over. This was a dog. Can you imagine being licked by a dog in pitch darkness that came out of nowhere? I thought I'd better make friends with this creature. "Hello, buddy," I tried. "Oh, yes, buddy." The dog was easing up a bit on the licking. I pushed it away, but it kept scouring onto me from every possible angle. I grabbed its neck and then started patting its flanks while stroking its head. The dog was being reasonable. It was certainly not out to shred me to pieces. "How do you like Doris?" said a female voice out of the dark. I was stunned, but recollected myself. "Oh, is that your dog? I think she's great." Then I started to laugh. I guess my intoxicated state and some rudimentary sense of fear made me just laugh in an uncontrollable kind of way. The laughter ended up in a deep coughing. Then I tried to focus again on my surroundings. I still could not see anything, and I was still sitting on my butt in the gravel of the dirt road. "How are you?" I tried. "And, by the way, my name is Maxwell. Who, may I ask, are you?" I was not expecting to meet anyone so late at night in this abandoned dry riverbed. "What brings you here?" I hoped to hear that female voice again, because, if not, I was definitely going mad. But only silence followed. "Hi there. I thought we were just getting to know each other. Why are you making a fool of me?" I tried in vain. Silence. 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 Then I heard footsteps again. These were human steps, and Doris followed the steps. These steps moved away from me. I was confused. What should I do next? Get back on my feet and resume my journey to Agua Amarga as if nothing had ever happened? "Hey! Hello! Please do not leave me alone!" I yelled. The lantern suddenly reappeared, but now about 150 foot away, at the same uphill trail as before. The lantern gently swayed back and forth. I'd better follow that light, I thought. This is a divine symbol. Let's trust my instincts. I should be fine. I stumbled toward the light of the lantern. I tried to recompose myself. Let's enjoy this nightly adventure, I thought. as I slowly felt my way across the rocky terrain toward the lantern, which swirled around and started to move ahead again. The lantern, of course, was carried by a person. I could see a faint, very dark silhouette of someone wearing a cape and a cap. I knew that the hilltops in this area were not exceptionally high, so we should summit at some mesa any time soon. Then I crashed into the ground again. I had stepped onto a loose boulder and tumbled over. I decided to give my body time to feel if anything was broken. I desperately wanted to escape from my predicament. Should I just fall asleep and resume my journey the next morning at first daylight? Doris was now barking. The sound came from the area uphill. The lantern was gone again, or at least I could not find an angle of view that captured the lantern's light. I must have passed out, for, indeed, I did not come to until first daylight. Wow, I was so utterly cold. I felt like I'd frozen to death. A faint headache reminded me of our enthusiastic wine consumption of last night. Here I was. Good boy, let's take this defeat in stride, I thought. I started rubbing my cold ears. My hands were colder than my ears, so it only hurt them when I touched. Trying to warm them. I better try rubbing my hands warm first, I thought. Finally, I somehow got back up to my feet again and took a deep breath of fresh air. I decided to explore where the uphill trail would lead me to. At least I could walk straight now. After about 20 minutes, I reached the mesa. The trail went right across, so I just moved on to satisfy my curiosity. I remembered my nightly encounter. Sure enough, just over the other edge, there was a small, secluded canyon with a massive oak, obscuring almost completely from view a small adobe house. I slowly approached the house and said, "Hola, hay alguien aquí?" There appeared a flecked dog that ran toward me. "Doris!" I exclaimed. She jumped energetically against me and barked a few times, welcoming me. Then Doris ran off and disappeared into the house. I moved toward the doorway. The door stood ajar. Should I just step inside? I knocked firmly on the door. No response. I moved inside. "Hello?" I tried. "Hello? How are you?" I kept searching my mind for what happened next. I've been searching for clues for a long time. The truth is, I cannot remember exactly what happened to me in that little house under the oak tree. Somehow, a time gap of 3 days occurred in my whereabouts. How would you, if I may ask for some welcome alibi, explain the gap? Version 3. The Apparition. It may be hard to believe, but I was not alone on my way down to the beach. I could hear many bells, and a pungent smell too, the unmistakable smell of a herd of goats. So, at some moments, I found myself trotting amidst hundreds of goats, who all made the journey down to the beach of El Plomo. This may sound idyllic, but it was not. Goats really stink, and they kick up a lot of dust too. After a while, I had no idea how long, I simply decided to leave the dirt track. The animal odor, noise, and dust produced by the goats had just become too much to bear for my senses. As I left the path, I immediately started to stumble, because the terrain was rough and unforgiving, full of rocks and bushes, thorny bushes too, and the odd prickly pear. The noise of the herd of goats ebbed away, and so did the dust and the foul smell. I could breathe again, but my head was not much more cooperative than before. I could barely coordinate the moves of my legs. I crawled and stumbled and somehow had made my way to a small hilltop. I was standing on the very top of that hill. There it happened. The first thing I felt was a strong, warm breeze that nearly knocked me off my feet. All around me started to glow a faint, friendly yellow light that seemed to come out of the ground. Whatever direction I looked, the light surrounded me, but beyond the hilltop the terrain remained pitch dark. The breeze was unsteady, almost gusty. I could not hear any sound other than the wind flouting past my ears. Next, I saw the apparitions. Out of nowhere appeared a sea of hands that waved gently and slowly moved closer. There were, maybe, 1,000 hands, all beautiful hands with long, tender fingers, mostly female, I guess. The fingers curled and moved gracefully through airspace. Then I felt someone touching my shoulders from behind, a very gentle touch. I was frozen by the surprise, but did not fear. This felt like a magic spell. I did not dare turn around, because I was sure there would be no one there when I would try to look behind me. I just wanted this wonderful hallucinatory experience to last a little longer. The warm air was pleasant, and the hands that touched my shoulders seemed to sensually move up and down my spine. The wind suddenly dropped, and I could hear the breathing of a person behind me. I also could smell a faint apple blossom.
"This is Sarah,"
said an elderly female voice. The voice did not come from behind me, but from somewhere in front of me. I could not see anyone, but was sure that the person could not be far away.
"I know who you are. In fact, I have known you for a long time,"
said the same voice.
"I think you are the perfect man for my daughter, Sarah, the one whose tender hands you feel caressing your tired back. Do you think you like what she can offer you?"
I was dumbfounded. How could I land in this crazy scene? Hello, madam, I tried. Then I could not suppress my laughter. I had no control over my own mouth. Actually, it was quite embarrassing, so I'm abbreviating the sounds I managed to produce. Meanwhile, the tender hands never left my body. They kept stroking my back in the most tender and sensual way. Was this erotic? I am not even sure if it was anything erotic.
"My dear boy,"
the elderly woman's voice spoke,
"you seem to be wasted. My daughter will take good care of you, I promise."
What I remember next is that the hands unzipped my pants, and a wonderful head with hundreds of curls moved to my front and kissed my belly, then moved closer to my most sensitive body parts. I just let go. I must have collapsed from fatigue, my legs giving way, and I landed on the ground, which was no longer rocky, but covered by a carpet of lush green moss. The light around our hilltop was getting brighter and shone over us. What happened next was beyond description. I recall a wonderful creature, naked and voluptuous, rolling on top of me. We were both stark naked, wild passion unleashed, and, much to my relief, the elderly woman, Sarah's mum, seemed to have disappeared. The next morning, I found myself lying on the hilltop. There was no green moss, only gravel and dry sand. My companion was no longer there. Had she really been there? Had something wonderful, last night, actually happened? Or was it only my wildest dreams? How would I ever be able to answer that question? I was looking around, inspecting the ground near me for clues. There was a bracelet, almost hidden by sand dust, but I discerned it all the same. This was very fine silversmith work. Could this bracelet belong to the girl that had made me so happy last night? I decided to get on my feet and continued my journey toward Agua Amarga. As long as the hot sun was still not high above me, it would be easy to complete my trip in early daylight. I quickly found the path that runs from El Plomo via Playa del En Medio to Agua Amarga. About halfway on the hike stood an old ruin, with 2 wonderful fig trees in front. I was very thirsty and lucky to find ripe figs, plenty of them, They were sweet and delicious. While I was eating these delicious fruits and licking my fingers while gorging on the figs, I suddenly discerned an old lady sitting silently beside the ruins. She was motionless, but watching me very discreetly. She never blinked. The distance between us was maybe 15 meters. I blinked my eyes incessantly, well, a lot of times, really, and pinched my arm. Still, I was not entirely sure whether this lady really existed. I did not want to upset her either, just in case she was real. "Do you have water?" I asked.
My dear boy, of course I have water for you.
She had a sweet, toothless smile. That voice, unmistakably, was the same voice of my apparition last night. I slowly walked towards the lady. "I have something for you," I said. I took the bracelet from my pocket and gently held it out for her. She had wonderful bright blue eyes.
Oh, yes. That is the bracelet of my daughter. I've been searching for that piece of missing jewelry for so long. You see, my daughter vanished 8 years ago. My husband died from sadness the year after her disappearance. I am glad you came to bring me back this little treasure. Water you'll find behind the house. There is a little spring. Very few people know about its existence."
"Thank you," I said, and moved towards the spring behind the house. The spring produced the purest water I've ever tasted, exactly the kind of water one needs to drink after eating so many figs and having had so much alcohol still in the body from the night before. I was curious to hear more about the story of this old lady, but when I walked back to the front of the ruins, she had vanished without leaving a trace. Version 4. Close Encounters. At some point, I smacked onto the ground, rather forcefully. I briefly lost my sense of orientation and tasted dust. I had literally bitten the dust. After some heavy breathing and profuse cursing, I rolled onto my butt. Only then did I feel a stinging pain from under the kneecap of my left leg. Wow! No joke! This was hurting. I felt some fluid oozing out of my knee. As I could not see anything, I tasted the oozing stuff that was now stuck to my fingers. This definitely was fresh blood. I had gotten myself in quite a mess here. Bleeding stops faster when you lie low. Literally, I knew. My inebriated brain cells concluded that I should try to rest up a bit, maybe even fall asleep till first daylight would come. Then I would be fine and could safely continue my return trip. Being under the weather was my predicament. Fortunately, the weather provided for a comfortable temperature. Slightly chilly, but I would be fine. My state was not just a tipsy one. Rather, I was declaring myself pretty seriously intoxicated, with everything around me turning hazy and blurring my thought process. Also, I had lost all sense of time and distance. Entirely. How far was I from the house of my friends? I did not know. How long ago had I left them? I had no clue. How late was it? Maybe midnight? No clue. Then something frightening happened. A thunderous sound of hooves came down the dirt road. What was this? I quickly suspected this was a herd of feral pigs. They are known to roam about at night looking for food and water. There were some snorting sounds too. These were definitely wild hogs. Fortunately, I was lying a bit off-road, and feral pigs take the easy route. I could already smell their body odor and a whirl of dust coming down the track with a light breeze. The dust irritated my eyes, nostrils, and lungs. I coughed a bit. The sound of the hooves was still swelling. A huge herd, maybe 20, 30 animals, was running right past me. At closest range, I guess they were only a couple of meters away from me. Then the sound, to my relief, quickly waned. Or so I thought. Briefly after the noise of the travelling pigs had started ebbing away, there was a distinct sound nearby, and there was some snorting too. I did not like it. I figured there was a laggard, maybe a boar, which had picked up my smell and now was curious to find out more. I knew about stories of feral pigs that had killed people. They may even eat us, if they are particularly in need of proteins, which of course they always are. It may sound barbarous, but hey, how many pigs are eaten by humans every minute? Would I now be the target of the pig's ultimate revenge? I sat up, but my knee really sent out stinging pain signals. Never mind the damned leg, I thought, as I scrambled up to my feet. In an instinctive act of self-defense, I screamed as loud as I possibly could. Then I went quiet to take inventory of the effect of my self-invented pig deterrent mechanism. My nightly companion was not deterred at all. The snorting just grew more intense. I estimated the beast was maybe 8 meters away. I also heard chewing sounds. Maybe it was digging up roots. Fuck the hog, I thought. There was no way I could fall asleep with this omnivorous monster right next to me. I also picked up a whiff of its smell. Pigs have an incredibly strong body odor. Some of it almost resembles human sweat. The pig odor mixed with my own alcohol breath in a strange way. To defend myself against a potential pig attack, I needed some sort of weapon. So I started feeling around for rocks of sizable weight. The one that had cut into my knee would do. But I did not find anything but gravel in my closest proximity. If I wanted to succeed, I needed to move a bit sideways to inspect the space immediately around me. Apparently, I was not very sturdy on my feet. I stumbled straight into a ditch. Bushes brushed past my sore knee, hitting the wound in a most unpleasant way. Yikes! Just when I thought that this was not the best part of my journey, suddenly huge floodlights came on. First, there was the light, then the sound of car engines. I was blinded by the abundance of light. Slightly to my left side, I could now see the boar. It was lying on its side, in an odd way, and was panting. And a convoy of cars came careering down the dust trail. Damn it, I thought. Hunters. From being worried about possibly being food for a hog, a much bigger fear now emerged. I could be shot. The pig next to me was making gurgling sounds. The poor animal, it finally dawned on me, must have already been shot. The hunters had seen their hog, and the cars came to a halt. They had their guns ready to give the hog the final fatal shot. One of the guys came over to me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Before I could answer, a loud bang went off right next to me. The hog literally screamed like a pig in its final moments. The conversation with my interrogator temporarily paused. He walked over to his friend, and together, they took care of the hog. They hauled it onto their truck bed. Then they seemed to confer, as if deciding about my fate. "Hey, guys, what about me? I sure could use some help." The other fellow pulled out a flashlight and strolled over to me. "How are you doing?" he asked. That voice! I recognized my friend Paco del Plomo. "Hi, Paco," I said. "I'm glad you came and did not take me for a pig." The rest became a tall tale. My wounded knee was quickly dressed. As we all sat around the stove in Paco's cozy adobe house at El Plomo, a bottle of gin, we decided, was the best medicine. I'm no longer so sure about that last judgment.